Hello, this is Dale Calvert. Today's November the 13th. I'd like to welcome you to this week's MLM Minute. And really what I want to do is just set something straight. I was reading a post the other day that somebody had written that said, Dale Calvert does not believe in using magazines to prospect and recruit with. And that's taken totally out of context. What I have said is you should not depend just on magazines, because magazine recruiting is becoming popular at this point in time, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But you should not just depend upon magazines to create leads. Those of you that really know what I teach and what I believe you create as many leads as you possibly can every single day, week, month of the year, doing as many different activities as you possibly can. I believe in everything that you can do to generate leads, whether it's offline, online, both. Create leads. The name of the game is sorting through people. We're all looking for the right people at the right time in their life. And if a magazine will help you do that, or a drop card, or a flyer, or an email blast or a solo ad, or ads on Google, or any other of the multiple ways to create leads, then you should be doing. You should be doing as much as you possibly can, because the name of the game is sorting through people. Amateurs try to convince people, professionals sort. We're looking for the right people at the right time in their life. Period. End of story. And most of you are sitting there trying they sponsor somebody, and we're trying to make a superstar out of them, and spending all this time, energy, and effort with people that are never going to do the business, instead of sorting through people and looking for those 3 to 5 people a year who want it as bad as you do. You find 3 to 5 people a year, 3 years, you're a superstar in your company, and a lot of you, I know, you've heard this 1,000 times from me. But that's the way it is. Now, back to magazines. I believe in magazines. I'm going to give you 2 awesome tips for magazine distribution. 2 great tips. As a matter of fact, I went and I was looking in our files, and I found this. This was actually Success Makers magazine. We were the first company that I can recall that ever produced a magazine to recruit with. This was way back in 1997. We produced this magazine called Success Makers. At the time, I can remember the thought process I was going through, because at the time the Money Makers monthly reprints were very popular to use in the marketplace. And some of you are as old as I am, and you remember those reprints, Company of the Month. And they were very popular. And I remember thinking about this and starting to think about putting something together along those lines. And I thought, it would be really cool if we had a magazine that featured our downline and all the 6-figure income earners in our downline. So that's what we do. That's what we did. We took different people's stories, put their picture and a headline and a story. $6,000 a month part-time furniture owner. $200,000 a year, mom, stay-at-home mom, and we put the stories of our downline, of our team, in this magazine. A lot of the 6-figure earners that we had. Grandmother earns $200,000 a year. Former hee-haw drummer finds his life's dream, and we put this together, and we wanted a real compelling cover. So of course we've got, that's my yellow Viper at the time, the blue Viper, 2 company limos here, the owner's Mercedes, and a company plane on the cover, and we called it Success Makers. So I believe in magazine advertising. We did it in this was probably 97, 98, okay, when we put this together, this publication. And in the last 2 or 3 years, my old buddy that runs Video Plus, Stuart, has started producing a monthly magazine. I believe he bought out the name or bought the rights to Success Magazine. And sometimes now you'll be going through a Staples and you'll see the magazine, and it always has a network marketing company featured on the front cover. Very well done, very professional, nice, awesome idea, great magazine. And so a lot of companies, especially in the last couple of years, have started teaching their distributors, buy cases of magazines and get them in the marketplace, and it's going to build you a great business. Well, it's a great way. It's a way I recommend but it's not the only way, and magazines in and of itself are not going to make you rich, but they should be. If they're available to you and your company, they should be part of what you do on a daily basis. Here's the 2 tips for using magazines. Number 1, think about where people wait, where they sit and wait. Doctor's office, dentist office, chiropractor office, oil change facility. You get the idea, where people sit and they wait. They're waiting for their appointment. Now, you guys have heard me talk about before creating a route and paying your children or your grandchildren to keep your route stocked. And we talked about using the bulletin board flyers and making sure that every bulletin board in your community has a flyer. And we talked about creating a route and then, just keeping that route full. If you have a magazine, then part of your route should be the doctor's office, the dentist office, the oil change facilities, etc. within your community. And because if you stop and think, that's where you want to put your magazines. Because if you stop and think about it, people sit down, you go in and you get your oil changed, and you're sitting there and you're waiting, or in a doctor's office, what is the first thing that you naturally, instinctively do? We look for something to read, right? So that's where you want your magazine. You want to make sure that when people are sitting down, they're captive, and they're looking for something to read. Just distribute your magazines in those areas. Okay, the last thing that I want to share with you, and this is a great tip, is when I would go speak, maybe doing a Super Saturday or somewhere, and let's say I would go to Houston. And those of you that know what I teach, I believe you build in your local market first and then you expand. You never go unless leadership takes you, and then you go. You just don't go try to open up a new area just because you want to be in that area. It's like looking for a diamond in the rough, trying to find a leader. If you build it strong locally, then people will know people who know people who know people in other areas and other states and other communities, and that's how you expand from a base, bottom line base, strong base in your home base. So what we would do when we came out with the magazine is I would take 50 and put them in my briefcase. And let's say I was going to Houston and I did a meeting in Houston, and now I'm flying back into the Lexington leg when I would fly back home into Lexington, Kentucky. And usually that was Atlanta to Lexington, because those of you that fly in the South, everything goes through Atlanta. So I would wait until the Atlanta-Lexington leg, because I knew that a lot of those people lived in my community that were flying back home. Not all of them. Some were flying into Lexington for horse business or whatever. But the majority of people lived in Lexington, or a good percentage of them lived in Lexington. So this was a way for me to kind of, target my local market at some level also. So you wait in the airport, and I've done this multiple times, and you're waiting, and they call your row, and then they call the next row. And then those of you that fly a lot, they'll say, this is the final boarding call for flight such and such going to Lexington, Kentucky. All ticketed passengers should board now. And I would wait till I got a final boarding call. And then I want it to be the last one on the plane. And I'd reach down in my bag, and I'd pull out, I put my shoulder bag with my computer, and I'd pull out my 50 magazines. And I would get to the end of the aisle, and you kind of wait till everybody gets themselves situated and seated. Wait as long as you can. And I'd have a stack of magazines and walk down the aisle and say, reading material, would you like some reading material? Reading material, would you like some reading material? And hand out the magazines. I could distribute 15, 20 magazines. And again, these were people, most of them were business people, most of them lived in my community, but I didn't care where they were from. But it was a great way to get magazines distributed into people's hands. Reading material and hand the magazine. So if you want to be successful with the magazine, 2 things. When you fly, always have them with you. Always have them with you. Create a route in your community where people are stopping and waiting. They're sitting, they're waiting Get your magazine. Make sure at least one or two of your magazines is in those locations, and you will have success. You will find great prospects in magazine recruiting, along with dozens and dozens of other methods, will work for you. This is Dale Calvert. We'll see you next week on the MLM Minute.